I never planned to visit my son-in-law that evening. It just happened. A sudden impulse. The kind that creeps in when you're bored, lonely, and too proud to admit it. The sun had already begun to sink behind the tall pine trees that bordered our small town in Vermont. The fall air was crisp, filled with the smell of wet leaves and distant wood smoke. My wife, Laura, had told me she'd be spending the evening with her sister. I didn't question it. After all, we'd been married for 28 years. You don't survive that long in a marriage without trust. Or maybe, that's exactly what blinds you. Our daughter, Chloe, had married Ryan Carter 2 years ago. Ryan was one of those polished, confident men, successful in business, charming, and always saying the right thing. Laura adored him. She said he reminded her of me when I was younger. That's probably why I never liked him much. That evening, I drove toward Ryan's house with a small box of tools in the trunk. Chloe had mentioned their porch light had stopped working last week, and I figured I could help fix it. I didn't call ahead. I wanted it to be a surprise, a small act of fatherly kindness. But as I turned onto Cedar Grove Lane, something made me slow down. Ryan's house sat at the end of a long driveway, hidden behind oak trees. It was quiet, too quiet, and then I saw it, a silver Lexus, parked neatly beside his gate. My heart skipped. Laura's car. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe she dropped by to bring something to Chloe. Maybe she just stopped to say hello. But as I stared at that car, the world around me went eerily silent. Even the crickets seemed to hold their breath. Something didn't feel right. I pulled over to the side of the road and turned off my engine. The faint glow of light leaked through the curtains of Ryan's living room. I rolled down my window slightly and listened. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the wind. Then, faint laughter. A woman's voice. Laura's voice. But it wasn't the usual kind of laughter. It was softer, playful, intimate. And then came a man's voice. Ryan's. The sound hit me like a blade between the ribs. I froze, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My brain tried to find another explanation. Maybe Chloe was home. Maybe all three of them were just talking. But deep down, a part of me already knew. I stepped out of the car quietly. The gravel crunched under my shoes. My heart pounded against my chest as I moved closer to the gate. Through the half-drawn curtains, I could see their silhouettes, two figures sitting close together on the couch. Laura's hand rested on his shoulder. Ryan leaned in toward her. I took a step closer. The world tilted. She wasn't just visiting. She was touching him, her fingers brushing against his face, her lips whispering something that made him smile. I stumbled backward, my breath caught somewhere between a gasp and a scream. For a moment, I thought about bursting through that door, confronting them both. But instead, I just stood there, staring like a ghost watching his own life fall apart. It was then I heard something that made everything worse. He'll never know, Laura's voice said softly. He doesn't suspect a thing. And Ryan's low chuckle followed, cruel and confident. He's too busy playing the good husband. Let him stay blind. My chest tightened, my vision blurred. The night air felt heavy, poisonous. I backed away slowly, afraid that if I moved too fast, I might shatter completely. By the time I reached my car, my hands were trembling so violently I could barely fit the key into the ignition. I sat there for a full minute, staring into the dark woods ahead. I wanted to scream, to cry, to hit something, but I didn't. Instead, I started the car, turned off the headlights, and drove away, silent, invisible. When I got home, Laura still hadn't returned. I sat in the dark living room, the clock ticking louder than usual. Every sound, the wind against the window, the hum of the fridge, felt amplified. At 10:47 p.m., I heard the familiar sound of her Lexus pulling into the driveway. I didn't move. A moment later, the front door opened. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice soft and casual. "You're still up." I looked up slowly. She was wearing a blue coat, her hair slightly messy, but her lipstick, that bright crimson shade she never wore for me anymore, was perfectly fresh. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Couldn't sleep." She smiled. "You should have come with me. My sister made lasagna." I forced a smile back. "Next time." She leaned over, kissed my cheek, and walked toward the stairs. The faint scent of Ryan's cologne lingered on her, and right then, I made a silent promise. I didn't know how or when, but I would find out the truth. All of it. And when I did, someone would pay. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together, laughing, whispering, touching. By morning, I had decided I'd act normal. I'd pretend nothing had changed, because the one thing Laura had always underestimated about me was my patience. I've spent my whole life fixing things, cars, furniture, even people. But some things can't be fixed. Some things have to be taught. And this time, I wasn't going to be the fool. I woke up the next morning before sunrise. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after a storm no one else knows happened. Laura was still asleep, curled up under the blanket like nothing had changed. I stood by the window, watching the dawn spread over the horizon. Birds were chirping. The world was moving on. But I couldn't. Every second replayed the night before. Her laughter, his voice, that car by the gate. It felt unreal, like I'd imagined the whole thing. But I knew what I saw, and I knew what I heard. Still, I couldn't confront her. Not yet. If I wanted the truth, I had to be smart. At breakfast, Laura hummed softly as she poured coffee. "Big plans today?" she asked. I forced a smile. "Just work." "You?" She shrugged. "Might visit Chloe later. She's been feeling under the weather." That lie hit me harder than the truth. She didn't even flinch while saying it. No hesitation. I nodded. "Give her my love." She kissed my forehead, grabbed her purse, and left. As the sound of her Lexus faded down the street, I leaned back in my chair, the silence wrapping around me like a noose. I waited 5 minutes, then grabbed my coat and keys. If she was going to Ryan's again, I needed proof. The drive to Cedar Grove Lane felt different that morning. The sky was gray, clouds hanging low, as if the whole world knew something ugly was about to happen. I parked my car 2 blocks away, near the old gas station, and walked the rest of the distance. My boots sank into the wet leaves lining the road. Ryan's house came into view. Modern, glass-fronted, with a perfect little lawn that screamed money and arrogance. Laura's silver Lexus wasn't there. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last long, because as I got closer, I saw movement behind the curtain, a shadow pacing the living room, a woman's outline, then another, taller, broader. Ryan. I crouched behind the fence, heart hammering. The front door opened. Laura stepped out. Her hair was tied up, and she wore the same red coat she'd worn last Christmas, the one I bought her. She looked happy. Ryan followed, standing just behind her, his hand brushing her arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. They talked quietly for a few seconds. I couldn't hear the words, but I could feel the warmth between them. She smiled, he smiled, and then she leaned in, kissed him lightly on the cheek. That was it. The world went silent. My chest burned. I stumbled backward, bumping into the fence. The noise startled a crow from a nearby branch, its harsh caw echoing through the air. They both turned. Laura's eyes scanned the yard, alert, searching. I ducked down quickly, my breath caught in my throat. After a few tense seconds, I heard the sound of her car door closing, followed by the engine starting. I peeked again. The Lexus rolled away down the driveway. Ryan stood there, watching her leave, before heading back inside. I waited until he disappeared, then made my move. The back door of the house was unlocked. I hesitated for a second, but my anger drowned out my conscience. The moment I stepped inside, the smell hit me. Laura's perfume, faint but unmistakable. The house was spotless, to spotless. Everything arranged perfectly, like a showroom. I moved quietly through the hallway, my eyes scanning every detail. A scarf, her scarf, lay draped over the armrest of the couch. Her lipstick mark stained a glass on the coffee table. Each object felt like a knife twisting deeper. Then I heard it, a faint noise coming from upstairs. Footsteps. I froze. Ryan was still inside. I glanced around, spotting a small door near the kitchen, the entrance to the basement. Without thinking, I slipped inside and pulled the door closed behind me. The darkness swallowed me whole. The air was cold, thick with the smell of dust and old paint. I could hear faint creaks above me. Ryan moving around, maybe talking on the phone. Then, something else. A voice, muffled, distant, but unmistakably familiar. Laura's voice. But she'd just left. For a moment, I thought I was losing my mind. Then I realized, The sound wasn't coming from upstairs. It was coming from below. There was another room, a door at the far end of the basement, half hidden behind some old boxes. I crept closer, each step careful, deliberate. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. The sound grew clearer. A recording. I pressed my ear against the door. He'll never find out, Ryan. Not as long as we keep this between us. Her voice, warm, confident. Then Ryan's voice. Don't worry, he's too trusting. Besides, once the papers are signed, we won't need to hide anymore. Papers. I opened the door slightly. It creaked, just enough to make my heart stop. Inside was a small room with a desk, a laptop, and a voice recorder still running. On the laptop screen, a document was open. Transfer of property. Whitman residence. My last name. Laura's signature was already there. That was the moment everything inside me died. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. She wasn't only cheating on me. She was planning to take everything. The house, the savings, my life. I backed away, shaking, barely able to breathe. Then I heard footsteps again, coming down the stairs. I killed the light on my phone and crouched in the corner. Ryan's voice echoed through the basement. I swear I heard something. He moved closer. My hand brushed against a rusted pipe on the floor. I gripped it tightly, every muscle in my body tense. The footsteps came closer, then stopped. Ryan stood in the doorway, scanning the dark. Hello, he called. My breath hitched. For a moment, I imagined standing up, swinging that pipe, ending it right there. But something stopped me. Not fear, not guilt, something colder. Patience. He turned away after a few seconds, muttering to himself. Probably the damn wind. I waited until I heard his footsteps climb the stairs again, then slowly emerged from the shadows. I looked one last time at the glowing laptop screen. That signature. Laura Whitman. My wife. My enemy. I slipped out through the back door into the cold morning air. As I walked away, I could still hear the faint sound of that recorder playing her voice, over and over. He'll never find out. But she was wrong. I had found out, and I wasn't done yet. That night, Laura came home again, smiling, pretending. We had dinner like nothing had changed. She asked about work. I asked about her sister. We were two actors trapped in the same play, both pretending to love, both hiding from truth. But as she laughed, I just watched her, memorizing every lie that crossed her lips, because soon, every one of those lies would come back to destroy her. For the next few days, I lived two lives. In one, I was the quiet husband, mowing the lawn, paying bills, asking Laura about her sister. In the other, I was a ghost, watching, listening, collecting pieces of the truth that she thought was buried. It's funny how quickly doubt turns into obsession. Once you start noticing the cracks, you can't unsee them. The routine. Tuesday morning, Laura left the house at 9:13 a.m. sharp. She said she was heading to her sister's again. I watched her drive off, then waited exactly 5 minutes before following in my truck. Her silver Lexus moved smoothly through the sleepy Vermont streets, passing the grocery store, the old library, the road to her sister's house, and then turned the other way, toward Cedar Grove Lane. Of course, but this time, she didn't go to Ryan's house. She drove past it, farther down, toward the old industrial area near the river. I slowed down, staying 3 cars behind. She finally pulled into a run-down building with a faded sign. Carter and Associates Real Estate, Ryan's company. I parked near a construction site and watched her walk inside. Her heels clicked on the pavement, confident, rehearsed. 23 minutes later, she came out, holding a folder. Ryan followed her to the car. They spoke briefly. No smiles this time, just tension. Then she drove away. Something had shifted. They weren't just lovers. They were partners. But in what? I needed to know. The camera. That night, after she fell asleep, I quietly left the house and drove back to Cedar Grove Lane. Ryan's driveway was empty. He wasn't home. Perfect. From the trunk, I took a small black box, a motion-sensitive camera I'd ordered years ago to catch raccoons messing with our garbage cans. I hadn't thought I'd ever use it again. I slipped through the backyard and attached it beneath the porch railing, angled toward the living room window. It would record any movement inside once someone walked past the sensor. Before leaving, I noticed something strange. a faint light glowing from Ryan's garage. Curiosity overrode caution. I crept closer and peeked through the window. Inside was a second car, a sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows. The license plate was covered with mud, but through the dusty glass, I spotted a manila envelope on the dashboard marked Whitman Project. My name again? I snapped a quick photo with my phone and slipped away before my shaking hands could give me away. The lies multiply. By the next morning, Laura's lies came easier. Chloe's been asking about you, she said over breakfast. Maybe you should visit sometime. Yeah, I said. I might just drop by. She smiled, that same perfect smile that once made me believe in forever. When she left, I opened her laptop. I'd never done that before, never had reason to. But now, reason didn't matter. Her email was open, a draft unsent. Ryan, he's starting to act strange. We should move faster before he gets suspicious. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I saw the timestamp, 1:22 a.m., while I was asleep beside her. The footage. That night, I drove to a small diner outside town. I brought my laptop and the camera's memory card. I played the footage. The first few clips were empty, daytime light flickering through curtains. Then, around 7 p.m., motion triggered. Laura entered the frame. She wasn't alone. Ryan followed, holding two glasses of wine. They talked quietly, pacing the room. I turned up the volume. Ryan, the transfer's almost done. Once the notary signs, the house is ours. Laura, he'll ask questions. He's not stupid. Ryan, let him ask. By the time he figures it out, we'll be gone. She hesitated, glancing toward the window, straight toward the camera, though she couldn't see it. Laura, and what about Chloe? She never forgive me. Ryan, you're doing this for her. She deserves the money, not him. The video cut off after that, but I didn't need more. Every lie now had a voice, every betrayal a face. The past resurfaces. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room, staring at old photo albums. Our wedding, Chloe's first birthday, Ryan proposing to her in the backyard. Something inside me twisted when I saw that photo. Ryan's hand on my daughter's shoulder, Laura standing beside him, smiling too brightly. Then I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. Ryan's arm, the tattoo near his wrist, a symbol, a small, faded crescent inside a circle. It looked familiar. I flipped through another album, one from my old construction firm, years ago. There he was, a young trainee, barely 20, working under my supervision. Same tattoo? His name back then wasn't Ryan Carter. It was Eli Ross, a man I'd fired 15 years ago for stealing company funds. My hands went cold. Ryan Carter, my daughter's husband, my wife's lover, was the same man I'd destroyed years ago. This wasn't an affair. This was revenge. The realization. Everything started making sense. The sudden marriage, the charm, the business success, the way Laura defended him from day one. He hadn't just stolen my wife. He'd planned to take my life, and she helped him. I sat there until the first light of dawn crept through the curtains. When Laura came downstairs, she looked refreshed, glowing. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked. "Not much," I said, forcing a smile. "Too many thoughts." She chuckled softly, kissed my cheek. "Don't overthink, darling. Life's too short." If only she knew how right she was. The decision. That evening, I drove back to the diner with a notepad. I began writing everything down. Times, dates, evidence. I saved the camera footage on multiple USBs. Then I wrote 3 words at the top of the page. They planned first. I finished last. The stranger. As I was leaving the diner, an older man approached me, bald, wearing a brown leather jacket. "Whitman?" he asked. "Yeah, do I know you?" He handed me a business card. "Detective Harper, Private Investigations. I was hired by your daughter," he said quietly. "She's worried about your wife and Ryan. Says something doesn't feel right." "Chloe, so she did know something. What have you found?" I asked. Harper looked around before lowering his voice. "Ryan's real name isn't Ryan Carter. It's Eli Ross. Served 2 years for embezzlement. Changed identity after getting out." I nodded slowly. "I know." He frowned. "Then you also know he's been moving large amounts of money through shell accounts in your name." My blood ran cold. "What?" Harper opened a folder. Inside were printed bank records, my name, my signature, transactions I'd never made. Ryan was framing me for everything. The resolve. That night, I sat in my study with the evidence spread out across the table. Photos, documents, the USB drive. Laura came in quietly. You're still working? Yeah, I said, just trying to fix something. She smiled, touching my shoulder. You always were the fixer. Huh? I met her eyes. Not this time. She tilted her head, confused. But I looked away before she could see what was brewing behind mine. When she went to bed, I packed a small bag, gloves, an old camera, a lockpick set I'd used years ago for a renovation job. Tomorrow night, I would visit Ryan again. Not as a husband, not as a father, as the man they both created. The night I decided to break into Ryan's office, it rained for the first time in weeks. Cold winds swept through the trees, turning every branch into a whisper. Thunder rolled far off in the distance, the kind that warns you something's coming. I took it as a sign. The world outside was washing itself clean. I was about to do the opposite. The break-in. It was past midnight when I parked a block away from Carter and Associates Real Estate. The building looked harmless, an old brick office with faded blinds and a glowing, open sign someone had forgotten to turn off. But I knew better now. Behind that glass door was the heart of everything they'd planned. The lies, the signatures, the betrayal. Rain slicked the pavement as I moved toward the side door. I'd spent my life fixing houses, rebuilding locks. Breaking one wasn't hard. A quick twist of my pick, a soft click, and I was inside. The air smelled like coffee and printer ink. A faint hum from the refrigerator echoed through the dark. I moved quietly, flashlight low. Ryan's office was at the end of the hallway. Mahogany desk, leather chair, a framed photo of him and Chloe smiling on their wedding day. The irony stung. Behind the desk was a cabinet with 3 drawers, locked. I crouched, worked the pick again. It took 30 seconds. The first drawer held nothing but pens and receipts. The second, business documents. The third, a red folder labeled W Project. My pulse quickened. Inside were printed contracts, emails, and scanned forms, all related to the Whitman property transfer, my house. But one email stopped me cold. The email from Laura Whitman to Ryan Carter. Subject, Chloe can't find out. Greater than. Eli, she's getting suspicious. She asked why the property forms list her as a beneficiary. I told her it's just legal protection, but she's not convinced. You need to keep her calm until we finish this. If she finds out the truth, it's over. I reread the line. List her as a beneficiary? Why would Chloe, my daughter, be a beneficiary in a deal meant to rob me? Unless she wasn't part of it. Unless she was being used to. I flipped through the rest of the pages. One document, stamped with the notary seal, froze my breath. Last will and testament revised. It wasn't mine. It was Laura's. And in bold print near the bottom, it read, in the event of my death, all marital and personal assets are to be transferred to Ryan Carter, spouse, and Chloe Whitman, daughter. Spouse, not son-in-law, not partner, spouse. She'd already filed for a legal name change. Laura Carter. My wife had erased me from her life, on paper. The thunder outside cracked like gunfire. I shoved the documents into my jacket and turned to leave. But a faint red light blinked on the wall. A security camera. It was moving, tracking me. I cursed it under my breath and ducked low. But it was too late. My face had already been caught. Footsteps echoed from the other end of the hall. Who's there? A man's voice called. I turned off the flashlight and pressed against the wall. A beam of light swept across the hallway. A security guard, older, bored-looking, holding a flashlight. He paused near the office door, muttering to himself. Then he noticed the half-open cabinet. Before he could react, I slipped out the side exit, silent as a shadow. Rain poured harder now. By the time I reached my truck, I was soaked, but clutching proof that my world had been rewritten. The discovery. I spent the next morning going through the documents one by one. My desk was covered with papers, all leading to one undeniable conclusion. Laura and Ryan had planned everything. Not just to steal my home and savings, but to legally erase me from existence. And somehow, they tied Chloe into it. whether she knew it or not. My head throbbed. I poured a glass of whiskey and stared at the documents until the words started to blur. That's when my phone buzzed. A text message from Chloe. Dad, can we meet? It's important. Don't tell Mom. The meeting. We met that afternoon at a small park on the edge of town, the same place I used to take her when she was little. She sat on the old wooden bench, shivering slightly under a gray sweater. Dad, she said, voice trembling. Something's wrong. I nodded. I know. She frowned. Then you know about the money? The fake accounts. I hesitated. How much do you know, Chloe? She took out her phone and showed me screenshots, wire transfers, company statements, Ryan's emails. I hired a private investigator a month ago, she said. Ryan's been stealing from me too. He transferred my trust fund into offshore accounts under Mom's name. My heart sank. He's using both of you. Her voice cracked. I don't even think he loves her. Dad, I think he's just using her to get to you. I reached over, squeezing her hand. We'll fix this, together. Tears welled in her eyes. There's something else. She took a deep breath and handed me a photograph. It was old, maybe 20 years. A woman, a baby, and a man I recognized instantly, Ryan, but he was holding a different woman's hand. Where did you get this? I asked. From Detective Harper, she said. He told me Ryan's first wife died in a car accident. But look at the date. I checked the back minus 2007. The same year I fired Eli Ross. Dad, Chloe whispered. What if Mom knew him even back then? My stomach twisted. The puzzle pieces clicked in one horrifying pattern. This wasn't chance. This had been building for years. The hidden connection. That night, I searched our old photo albums again. There, a Christmas photo from 2007. Laura standing beside me, smiling, and behind her, a man at the edge of the frame, blurry, but his tattoo visible. Ryan, he'd been near us even then, watching, waiting. And Laura, she'd known. The decision. I called Chloe later that night. Don't go near him, I said. Don't answer his calls. I'll handle this. She hesitated. Dad, what are you going to do? I paused, staring at the storm outside. End it, I said quietly. All of it. The setup. Over the next few days, I became a man with a plan. Every lie they built, I would turn against them. I used Harper's help to duplicate all the documents, every transfer, every email, every signature. Then, I sent anonymous copies to the state attorney's office, labeled as potential fraud evidence. But that wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel what I felt. Confusion, fear, betrayal. So I started small. I changed the passwords on our joint accounts. I canceled the insurance policies under Laura's name. I had the locks on our home quietly replaced. Then, I left a single note in her purse. I know everything. That night, she came home late again. Her face pale, her voice shaky. Did you leave this? She asked, holding up the note. I looked at her calmly. What note? Her eyes searched mine. Desperate, terrified. Stop playing games. I shrug. You think I have time for games? For the first time in years, she looked scared of me, and I liked it. When she finally went to bed, I sat in the dark, listening to the rain hit the window. The sound used to calm me. Now it was a countdown. They thought they were clever. Two snakes winding around the same prey. But they forgot something about snakes. They always end up devouring each other first. The morning after the note, the air in the house felt different. Thick, quiet, like the silence right before lightning splits the sky. Laura moved around the kitchen slowly, pretending everything was normal, humming softly, pouring coffee, scrolling her phone. But her hands trembled. Every time her eyes met mine, she looked away. I'd seen that look before, the look of someone who knows the walls are closing in. The call. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Private number, Mr. Whitman. A voice said, "This is Detective Harper. We need to meet. In person." I met him at a diner outside town, a place that smelled like burnt toast and old secrets. He slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Ryan Carter's file," he said quietly. "The one I told you was sealed." I opened it, and the truth hit me like a punch to the chest. Ryan's past. Name, Eli Ross. Alias, Ryan Carter. Age, 38. Occupation, former contractor, later real estate developer. Criminal record, fraud, identity theft, assault charges dropped. Ryan Carter didn't exist until 8 years ago. He changed his name after a real estate fraud case went south. His partner took the fall, and he vanished with the money. But what chilled me most were the attached photos. One of them showed Eli, Ryan, at a construction site from 2007, and standing next to him was Laura, same smile, same necklace she still wore. Harper, I said quietly. How long have they known each other? He exhaled. At least 20 years. They met long before you ever did. I felt the world tilt under me. The beginning of the lie. Back in 2005, Laura had moved to Chicago for a training program. She'd told me it was a short-term thing, something to help her career. But in Harper's file, I found her name listed as a co-signer on a company registered under Eli Ross Construction. She wasn't just his lover, she was his partner. Together, they'd run a small scam operation, flipping abandoned houses under fake ownership papers. When it collapsed, she returned home and met me, the safe, stable man, a way to rebuild her life. And when Ryan reappeared years later, she didn't see a ghost. She saw an opportunity. The trap. I left the diner shaking. The sky outside had turned heavy and gray, clouds pressing down on the world. Every step felt slower, heavier, like I was walking through water. When I got home, Laura's car wasn't there, but Ryan's truck was. I parked quietly down the street and walked up the side of the house. Through the window, I saw them, standing in the living room, arguing. Told you he's not stupid, Laura. Ryan's voice boomed. He found the folder, didn't he? I don't know how. She snapped. You said it was safe. He slammed his fist against the wall. If he goes to the cops, we're finished. She stepped closer, voice trembling. You said you loved me. He laughed bitterly. I said what I needed to. The words hit her like a bullet. And that's when I realized something I never expected. Laura wasn't the only one being used. The shift. That night, she came home alone. Her eyes were red. She didn't speak, just poured herself a drink, sat in the dark, and whispered, You were right about him. I didn't answer. I thought I could control it, she said softly, that I could make it right after what happened years ago. But he wanted everything. Even Chloe? She turned to me, voice breaking. I never meant for you to get hurt. I looked at her, the woman who'd shared my life, my home, my child, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. You already hurt me, I said quietly. Now you just need to decide who you want to destroy next. Her confession. Over the next hour, she told me everything. About 2005, about Eli, about how their scam had gone bad and a man ended up in the hospital, how she'd left him, changed her name, and tried to start over. Then, years later, when Chloe introduced her new boyfriend, Ryan, she froze. He changed too. Different name, different city, but the same eyes. He told her he just wanted forgiveness. Then, little by little, he started asking for help. At first, it was, can you sign this form? Then, can you convince your husband to sell the property? Then let me handle the finances. I know what I'm doing. By the time she realized what was happening, it was too late. I was scared, she whispered. He said if I told anyone, he'd ruin Chloe's life. Why didn't you come to me? Her eyes filled with tears. Because you would have left me, and I couldn't lose everything again. I looked down at the table. The woman across from me wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger wearing her face. The turning point. That night, I made my decision. If Ryan, Eli, wanted to play games, I'd end them on my terms. I called Harper again. I want him, I said, and I don't care how. The detective's voice hardened. Then we do it right. You bait him. I smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The setup. The plan was simple. We'd make Ryan believe Laura was going to betray him, turn the tables. I had Laura write a message and send it from her phone. We need to talk. The cops came by today. I can't do this anymore. Meet me tomorrow night. Whitman's warehouse, 9 p.m. She hesitated before hitting send. He'll know it's a trap. No, I said. He'll think you're scared, and scared people make mistakes. The warehouse. It was the same warehouse I used for storage. Isolated, quiet, and, thanks to Harper, wired with hidden cameras. At 8:55, the rain started again. Thick, heavy drops hitting the tin roof like gunfire. Laura stood near the entrance, trembling. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. I nodded. "Just follow the plan." At exactly 9:03, headlights appeared. Ryan's truck. He stepped out, wearing a black jacket. Face cold, eyes wild. "You called me here," he said. "Why?" Laura's voice shook. "Because it's over. Eli, they know everything." He froze. "Who knows?" "Harper, my husband, everyone." He stepped closer, anger flashing. "You stupid." Before he could finish, I stepped out of the shadows. "Evening, Eli." The confrontation. He turned, startled, but then smirked. "So this is how it ends, huh?" "I'd say it's how it should have ended years ago." He laughed. "You think you're the good guy here. She was never yours to begin with." Laura flinched. "Everything you built," Ryan said, "was because of me. That company, that house, it all started with my money. You were just living my life." I stepped closer. "Then come take it back." For a moment, it looked like he might lunge. Then he froze. His eyes darted to the shadows. The faint red light of the hidden camera blinked. He realized late what was happening. Harper and his team burst in from the side door, shouting, "Police! Hands up!" Ryan's face went pale. He started to run, but Laura grabbed his arm. "Stop. Eli, it's over." He turned, eyes full of venom. "You think you've won," he hissed. "You'll regret this. Both of you." They dragged him out, cuffed and shouting, as the rain poured harder. For a long time, I just stood there, watching the place where he'd been, feeling nothing but exhaustion. The aftermath. 2 days later, Harper called. "They've got enough to charge him. Identity theft, fraud, attempted extortion. He's not getting out anytime soon." I thanked him, but peace didn't come. Laura moved out a week later. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't deserve it. Chloe visited once, hugged me, and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Dad." But I could see it in her eyes. The cracks this had left would never fully heal. The final twist. A month later, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A photograph. It showed Ryan, sitting in a prison yard. But he wasn't alone. Across from him sat Laura. On the back, written in her handwriting, "Some debts never die." It had been 3 months since the night at the warehouse. 3 months since the cops dragged Ryan away. Screaming threats that echoed in my mind long after he was gone. The days since then had been quiet, too quiet. I tried to rebuild something like a normal life. Early mornings, black coffee, fixing up the house one broken hinge at a time. But silence has a sound. If you listen long enough, it starts to whisper. And lately, it whispered his name. The letter. The day it began again, the sky was bright, unnaturally so, like the world didn't know what had happened. A plain envelope sat in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside, a single photo. It was my daughter, Chloe, standing outside her apartment, talking to a man in a black hoodie. His face wasn't clear, but on his wrist, a tattoo, the same one Ryan had. I turned the photo over. On the back, scrawled in uneven handwriting, "Did you think bars could stop me?" My blood ran cold. The visit. I drove straight to Detective Harper's office. He looked tired, older somehow, papers scattered across his desk. "Ryan's in prison," he said when I showed him the photo. "No way he sent this himself." "Then who did?" Harper rubbed his temples. "Prison mail is screened, but visitors aren't. Someone's helping him." "Laura." He didn't deny it. "We're watching her," he said. "She's been visiting him weekly. But if she's smuggling messages out..." I slammed my fist on the desk. "You told me he couldn't reach us again." Harper sighed. "He's a manipulator, Whitman. People like that don't need freedom. They just need influence." The paranoia. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made me flinch. A passing car, the creak of the porch steps, the hum of the refrigerator. At 2 a.m., I looked out the window. Someone was standing at the end of my driveway. Just standing there, tall, hood up, hands in pockets. The next day, Harper and I drove to the location printed on the tag. A storage facility on the outskirts of town. The manager checked the number. Unit 107. Been rented under the name Ryan Carter for 3 years. Paid in cash. We opened it. Inside, boxes stacked neatly, labeled with dates. On the wall, photographs. Me, Laura, Chloe, Even Harper, every detail of our lives pinned up like a crime scene. And in the center, a note. The end is only the beginning. The revelation. We went through the boxes one by one. Inside were drives, documents, receipts, and a stack of forged deeds, all under my name. Harper frowned. These are dated last week. He's framing you. For what? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He stepped outside to take the call. When he returned, his face was pale. What is it? I asked. They found your wife's car. Where? Near the river. Empty. The search. They found her that night. Not dead, but unconscious. Her car had been forced off the road. She was taken to the hospital, bruised, shaken, but alive. When she woke, I was there. Laura, I said softly. What happened? Her lips trembled. He's alive. I shook my head. No, we saw the report. He staged it. She whispered. He paid the guards. The body they found, it wasn't him. He wanted me to think it was, so I'd lead them to the storage unit. Why? Her voice broke. Because he needed something from there. Something only you could unlock. I frowned. What are you talking about? She closed her eyes. The flash drive. The flash drive. We went back to the unit. The police had cleared most of it, but I found one small, unmarked box near the corner. Inside, a single USB drive. When I plugged it into Harper's laptop, a folder popped up labeled Whitman Legacy. Inside were videos, recordings of every conversation Laura had with me, edited, spliced together. Each clip twisted the truth, making it look like I had been behind the entire fraud operation. Harper cursed. If this got out, it would ruin me. Or worse, he said, it would make you look guilty of his crimes. I stared at the screen, my own voice manipulated into confessions I never made. He'd planned everything, even from inside prison, the disappearance. By the next morning, Laura was gone again, her hospital bed empty, for pulled out. Harper swore, she's either running from him or running to him. I checked her phone records. The last call she made was at 3:12 a.m. to a burner number, and the location pinged from an old motel outside town, the same one where Ryan had lived years ago, under his old name, Eli Ross. The confrontation. I didn't call the cops this time. I went alone. The motel was half abandoned, neon flickering in the rain. Room 14. Door slightly open. Inside, Laura, sitting on the bed, hands clasped. He's here, she whispered. I looked around. Where? Before she could answer, the door slammed shut behind me. A voice from the shadows. Welcome back, old friend. I spun around, and there he was, Ryan, alive, the resurrection. He looked thinner, paler, but his eyes still burned with that same cold fire. How? I started. He smiled. Money buys a lot of things. Eli, guards, bodies, freedom. I stepped forward. What do you want? He laughed. Justice, the kind I never got. For what? For taking my life, my company, my woman. He nodded toward Laura. She was mine before you. You stole her. Laura's voice cracked. Stop it. Eli, this isn't about love. It's about control. He ignored her. You thought you could erase me. Now it's my turn. He pulled out a phone, showing a live feed of my house. Chloe, tied to a chair, crying. Let her go. I shouted. You want her alive? He said. Then you confess. To everything. The choice. He tossed me the phone, recording already running. Say it, he ordered. Say you did it all. That you stole the money. That you ruined me. My mind raced. Harper's team didn't know where I was. No backup. Just me, Laura, and a man who'd come back from the dead. I met his eyes. You won't win. He smiled. I already have. And then, a gunshot. Laura, she stood behind him, shaking, the gun smoking in her hands. Ryan looked down, stunned. Blood spread across his shirt. He stumbled, eyes wide. You still choose him, she whispered. I choose to end this. He collapsed. The silence. For a long moment, no one moved. The rain outside softened to a drizzle. Laura dropped the gun, trembling. It's over, she said. It has to be. But even as she said it, I knew it wasn't, because on the phone in Ryan's hand, the one still recording, a red light blinked, streaming live. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective, like black glass under the street lights. Laura's hands were still shaking, and the gun lay on the motel floor, smoking faintly. Ryan Carter, the man who had haunted my life for 2 decades, was gone. Or so I thought. Then I noticed the phone in his limp hand. The little red recording light was still blinking. Liv, the panic. I grabbed the phone, but it was too late. The app was synced to the internet. Anyone could see what had just happened. Laura whispered, Eli, they'll see it. Everyone will see it. They'll think I did it. I finished. Exactly. The police, the media, Harper, even Chloe, everyone. I shoved the phone into my jacket and ran to my car. Laura followed, still pale, still trembling. We can't go back home, she said. No, I agreed. Not yet. We need a plan. The escape. For hours, we drove, moving through deserted back roads. Every glance in the rearview mirror made my stomach churn. At one point, a black SUV appeared behind us, keeping pace silently. I cursed under my breath. Harper had told me Ryan could have accomplices. I took a sharp turn into an abandoned warehouse district. The SUV didn't follow, but the thought of who else might be watching never left me. We parked in the shadows and sat in silence. Finally, Laura spoke. They'll broadcast it, she said. He said it himself. He wanted everyone to see us. And you, as the murderer. I nodded. Then we stop it first. We find the feed and take it offline. The hack. Harper had given me the contact for a friend, a cybersecurity expert, someone he trusted after the first round of Ryan's schemes. By 3 a.m., we were in a small, cluttered office, the air thick with caffeine and tension. Show me the feed, I said. The man, Mason, frowned at the phone. It's live, already streaming through multiple proxy servers worldwide. Someone in 5 countries is watching right now. Can you stop it? Mason smirked. I can make it private, but not before it's uploaded everywhere. I slammed my hand on the table. Then we cut it before it spreads. He worked quickly, tracing the IP, breaking through firewalls, and finally, with a deep click, the live feed went dark. Laura slumped in the chair, exhausted. Is it over? I shook my head. No, we bought time, but they've already seen snippets. Clips could go viral by morning. The fallout. By dawn, news was everywhere. Man found dead in motel room. Murder suspected. Whitman family caught in murder scandal. Social media exploded. People were sharing video clips. The narrative had already started to form. The victimless. Crime twisted into Eli Whitman, murdering Ryan Carter in cold blood. I called Harper. It's getting worse, I said. He groaned. We need a counter-narrative. Proof. Everything you have. Documents, videos, emails. We present to the authorities immediately. But even as I gathered the evidence, I knew Ryan had planned this. He had already shaped the story in people's minds before I even knew the full truth. The accusation. Chloe called. Her voice panicked. Dad, the police are asking questions. They're showing my friends the videos. Everyone thinks you killed him. I gritted my teeth. I'll fix this. But fixing it meant confronting the reality of Ryan's final act. A digital trap perfectly timed. Everything we'd done to survive was now under public scrutiny. The investigation. Detective Harper coordinated the evidence. The USB drives from the storage unit, the forged deeds and emails, Laura's confession about Ryan's manipulations, video proof of Ryan alive before his staged death. By the afternoon, the police had enough to reclassify the case from murder to attempted framing. But the damage wasn't gone. The public had already seen glimpses of the truth. Even if I was cleared, my life, my reputation, and my family would be permanently stained. The threat. That evening, Laura and I met in a safe house Harper had arranged. We need to leave town, he said, until this blows over. I nodded. And Ryan, alive, Harper said quietly. He's smart. He has allies outside, and prison doesn't stop him from manipulating others. If he wants to ruin you, he still can. I clenched my fists. Then we end it this time. The plan. Over the next few days, we worked quietly. I gathered all the financial evidence Ryan had fabricated. Harper helped set up legal protection for Chloe. Laura agreed to testify, fully, honestly, and publicly, about Ryan's manipulations and schemes. The next phase was simple but dangerous. Expose him, publicly, and force him to reveal himself fully. Every accomplice, every plan, It was no longer just about survival. It was about ending Ryan Carter once and for all. The public exposure. We coordinated with authorities to release a press statement. Laura gave a recorded confession, explaining Ryan's long-term schemes, his use of her, and his intent to frame me. The media published the story, complete with proof, emails, documents, and timestamps. The public narrative shifted. No longer was I the murderer. Now, Ryan, still alive in prison, became the mastermind, the message. But as I watched the coverage, a small envelope arrived at the safe house. Inside, a note in red ink. You think it's over, but someone always watches. I'm not done. I knew the handwriting immediately. Ryan, the decision. I looked at Laura. He's still out there. She nodded, determined. Then we finish this, Eli. Once and for all. I exhaled slowly. No more mistakes. No more games. This time, we control every move. For the first time, I felt the calm before the storm where I wouldn't just survive, I would win. The rain had stopped weeks ago, but the streets still smelled of wet asphalt and lingering fear. Even in daylight, I felt shadows follow me. Ryan Carter, or Eli Ross, as he truly was, had survived everything. He had manipulated, framed, and terrorized us for years. But now, I was ready. No more running, no more hiding. This was the final hunt. The allies. Harper had helped track Ryan's network over the past month. It wasn't just him. There were others, loyal, skilled, dangerous, men and women who had benefited from his schemes. Some still free, some in hiding. We mapped them all, each name connected to bank accounts, shell companies, and safe houses. Laura reluctantly agreed to accompany me. Despite everything, she wanted to make amends and help Chloe. The first target was a man named Vince DeLuca, a former accomplice who had managed Ryan's offshore accounts. The trap. We found Vince at a small warehouse outside Boston. I watched from a distance as he exited a black SUV, cigar in hand. Harper whispered through the earpiece, "Do you want him alive?" "Yes," I said. "We need information, not revenge." Yet. We approached cautiously, lights low, shadows long. Vince laughed when he saw us. "Eli, Whitman, thought you were dead in that motel fire." I didn't respond. Instead, I pressed a button on my phone. The warehouse doors slammed shut. Automatic locks. Vince's laughter faded. What is this?" I stepped closer. Voice cold. "Information. You either give it willingly, or this place becomes your prison for the night." Harper kept his hand near the door, ready to call backup if needed. Vince smirked. "You think I'm scared?" I smiled faintly. "You should be." The revelation. Vince caved within an hour. Under pressure, and the subtle threat of exposure, he revealed the full scope of Ryan's plan. Multiple safe houses across New England, a network of trusted associates still willing to act on his orders, a stash of weapons, falsified identities, and escape routes. Most importantly, Ryan's ultimate target was me, not just the family or assets. He laughed bitterly. "The man doesn't play fair. He sets traps before anyone even knows the game exists." I nodded. "Then we end it now." The hunt begins. Using the information Vince provided, Harper and I planned a series of simultaneous raids. Safe House 1. Weapons and cash neutralized. Safe House 2. Fake IDs destroyed. Safe House 3. Ryan's hidden phone lines and surveillance cameras offline. Each step tightened the net around him. I began feeling a strange exhilaration. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was controlling. Laura watched quietly, nervous but trusting. She knew this was the only way to finally close the chapter. The lore. We learned Ryan's location. A secluded cabin in the Adirondacks. Remote. Surrounded by dense forest. No neighbors for miles. Harper recommended a tactical approach, but I had another idea. We would bait him. I called a burner phone we had set up. "Eli, Whitman knows everything. Meet me tonight at the cabin. Alone. Or Chloe pays the price." The message wasn't meant to fool him. It was meant to draw him out. The cabin. Night fell like ink. The forest was silent, thick with anticipation. I parked behind a ridge and watched the cabin through binoculars. A single light flickered inside. The smell of wet pine filled the air. Then the door opened. Ryan stepped out. Alone. The confrontation. He looked thinner, gaunt, but still deadly. His eyes held the same fire, the same hatred that had haunted me for years. "You set this up," he said, voice low. "A trap." I stepped forward, boots crunching on the underbrush. "It's called justice, Ryan." He laughed bitterly. "Justice? You have no idea what that means. You've only been reacting. Scared, paranoid, chasing shadows." "Not anymore," I said. "Now I decide the game." He smirked, pulling a small pistol from his coat. "Then let's see who's better." The battle? The night erupted. Gunshots echoed across the forest. I dived behind a fallen tree as Ryan fired blindly. Laura stayed back, whispering Chloe's name, praying we survived. I rolled, grabbed a large branch, and charged. Ryan swung the gun toward me, but I knocked it aside. A struggle, years of training, fear, and survival instincts kicked in. I pinned him to the ground. "You're finished," I hissed. He laughed, even in defeat. "You think this ends with me? You'll always be haunted, Eli." "I'll take my chances," I said. The capture, Harper and backup arrived moments later. Ryan was cuffed, beaten, but alive. "No more tricks. No more manipulation." He glared at me. "This isn't over," he spat. I stepped back. "It is, for you." The forest was silent again, except for the rain softly starting to fall. The aftermath. Back in town, Ryan's associates were arrested. The fake accounts, shell companies, and fraudulent deeds were all seized. Laura testified, clearing my name completely. The media narrative shifted once more. The public saw Ryan Carter for what he truly was, a manipulator, a fraud, a danger. Chloe hugged me that night. "I knew you'd do it, Dad," she whispered. I smiled tiredly. It wasn't easy, but it's over. For now. Laura moved away, finally free of both Ryan and the past. We never spoke much after that. Some betrayals are too deep to repair. The warning. But even as I returned to my quiet life, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still watching. Weeks later, I received a postcard. No return address. A single sentence. "You may have won this round, but the game never ends." I knew immediately who it was from. Ryan Carter. Even behind bars, even defeated, the man would always be a threat. But for the first time, I smiled, because this time I was ready for him. The weeks following Ryan's capture were tense. Even behind bars, his shadow stretched across my life. Every day, I felt him, in the whispers of news reports, in the lingering fear in Chloe's eyes, in Laura's silence. He had one last card to play, and I intended to play mine first. The plan. I didn't want to rely on brute force this time. This was psychological, a game of minds. Harper and I devised a plan. 1. Make Ryan believe he still controlled the narrative. 2. Isolate him from all allies. 3. Force a confession. Recorded, undeniable. 4. Ensure the safety of Chloe and Laura. Every move had to be precise. There was no room for error. The bait. We knew Ryan's obsession. Control. He'd never resist a chance to manipulate, to prove he was untouchable. We sent him an anonymous message. "Eli Whitman thinks he's won. Meet me at the old warehouse, tonight, midnight, alone. Let's end this properly." It was risky. If he refused, he might go after Chloe again. But Harper assured me Ryan would come. He always did. The warehouse. I arrived early, the warehouse silent and empty. The smell of oil and rust hung in the air. Rain drizzled outside, tapping against the metal roof like a heartbeat. Laura stayed behind, keeping Chloe safe. Harper monitored every entry point. At exactly midnight, headlights pierced the shadows. Ryan's truck rolled up, engine humming. He stepped out, confident, smirking. "Eli," he said, voice smooth, "you really think you can end this?" "I don't think," I said. "I know." The confrontation. He laughed, pulling a pistol from his coat. "Always the hero, huh? Let's see how brave you really are." I didn't move. Instead, I stepped forward, my hands empty, voice calm. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." He raised the gun. "You should be." A single shot rang out, not from him, but from the shadows. Harper had fired a warning shot into the wall. Ryan froze. He didn't know which way to turn. The psychological trap. I began talking, slowly, deliberately. "You've spent years manipulating everyone around you, twisting the truth, erasing people from their lives, thinking you're untouchable." His eyes narrowed. And now, you've overplayed. Every move you made, every person you threatened, we've recorded. Every confession, every lie, documented? I pulled out a tablet, showing files, videos, and emails. Ryan's smirk faltered. You think that's enough? I shook my head. No, but it's the first step. I explained the plan. Harper had coordinated with multiple law enforcement agencies. They were ready to swoop in the moment Ryan made any move, and every lie he thought he had neutralized. The confession. He laughed nervously. You're bluffing. Am I? I pressed. Or are you about to confess? I played a recording from one of his earlier meetings with Laura, where he planned the entire scheme, admitted to fraud, and even mocked me personally. Ryan's face went pale. He tried to backpedal, but it was too late. Every word he'd ever said was evidence. You have no idea what I can do, he shouted. I do, I said, and now everyone else will too. Your time is over. The physical confrontation. He lunged, desperate, gun raised. I dodged, rolling to the side, grabbing a metal pipe from the floor. We struggled. Years of fear and anger turned into raw strength. I pinned him, twisting the gun from his hand. You're finished, Ryan, I growled. No more games, no more lies, no more fear. Harper and the police entered just as I handcuffed him to a heavy support beam. The exposure. Once Ryan was secured, the final step was the public confession. We released the recordings and documents to the media, showing his manipulation, fraud, and intent to harm. Within hours, the story went viral. Ryan Carter, the master manipulator behind a decade of lies. Whitman family victorious in long-term fraud case. Social media exploded with support. The narrative had shifted irrevocably. The aftermath. Chloe hugged me the next morning. Dad, it's really over. For him, I said. For us, we still have to rebuild. But yes, it's over. Laura decided to move away, seeking distance from both Ryan and the chaos. For the first time in years, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The final warning. Weeks later, Ryan was tried and sentenced for multiple crimes: identity theft, fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. He had no allies left, no network, no escape. Still, I received a letter at my home. It was small, typed on plain paper. You may have won this round, but a mind like mine doesn't die. Remember that. I smiled and tore it up. Some threats don't matter anymore. Some people are already defeated in every way that counts. The new beginning. Life slowly returned to normal. I focused on Chloe, on rebuilding the home, and on creating a life free of fear. I had learned something crucial. Fear is temporary. Betrayal is painful but survivable. And revenge, if carefully executed, can be more than just satisfaction. It can be closure. Ryan had taken years from us, but in the end, he had lost everything, and we had survived, and that was all that mattered. The first rays of sunlight cut through the curtains like a promise. After years of manipulation, betrayal, and fear, the storm had passed. Ryan Carter, or Eli Ross, was behind bars. Every scheme exposed, every lie neutralized, every threat contained. For the first time in a decade, the world felt safe. The morning after, I sat on the porch, sipping coffee, watching Chloe play in the yard. Her laughter, pure, innocent, filled the air, chasing away memories of darkness. Harper called briefly to check on us, making sure the media frenzy was dying down. Everything's quiet, he said. Ryan won't be getting out anytime soon. I nodded, relief washing over me. Good, that's how it should be. Rebuilding trust. Laura had moved to another city. We spoke rarely, but her distance brought clarity. Chloe asked about her once. I told her the truth, only the parts she needed to know. Some wounds don't heal fully, but truth and honesty help mend the ones that matter. I spent the next weeks restoring the house, repairing small damages, and creating a sanctuary for us. The reflection. One evening, sitting on the porch, I reflected on the journey. Years of fear, betrayal, and revenge had shaped me. I had been broken, deceived, and hunted, but I had survived. I had fought, calculated, and finally reclaimed my life. I realized something essential. Vengeance had its price. The longer you wait, the higher the cost. But with patience, courage, and careful planning, it could also bring justice, closure, and a chance to rebuild. Chloe's growth. Chloe had changed too. She had grown stronger, more cautious, but resilient. One evening, she sat next to me on the porch. "Dad," she said softly, "I feel safe now. Like, we can finally breathe." I smiled, placing a hand on hers. "Yes, kiddo, we can breathe, and we will. Every day, we get stronger." Her eyes glistened. "I'm proud of you, Dad." I felt a warmth I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just relief, it was a promise of normalcy. The final reflection on Ryan. Though Ryan was defeated, his shadow lingered in my mind. I knew he would always be a part of my story, the man who tested my limits, forced me to confront betrayal, and challenged my morality. But the difference now was clear. He had lost. He would never touch us again. Every trap he laid, every manipulation, had failed, and I had survived, wiser, stronger, and free from fear. The letter. Weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a single line, typed neatly. "You survived. But remember, the world always has challenges. Be ready." I smiled faintly. Not fear this time, not anger, just clarity. The world would always have challenges, but I had learned the rules. I had survived the ultimate game, and now, I was ready for anything. The peace. Life returned to a quiet rhythm. Morning coffee, Chloe's laughter, long walks in the park, evenings spent repairing the home.